Hello, everyone, and welcome back to live coverage of the Eternal Weekend in Prague. I'm here with Skura. We're bringing you all the action from today's Legacy main event. We have 10 rounds of Swiss today. We are entering currently round 6, so we're about halfway there. The record for top 8 is roughly 9-1. Perhaps there are going to be some players with good tiebreakers that might sneak in with 8-1-1. The top 8 is going to be played tomorrow. It's going to be a long day. So tomorrow we're going to have the top 8 of the Legacy event for you, and then the Vintage main event, plus the top 8 on Sunday evening. So right now we are ready to start number 6. We have a couple of exciting feature matches for you. I think the first feature is between Bant Infect and Boros Initiative. Philip, could you introduce the decks for us? What can you tell us about Initiative?
Yeah, Initiative is a deck that is a stompy strategy that wants to power out, with City of Traitors and Ancient Tomb, power out an early Fable, Bloodman, or Archon of Emeria. These are kind of like a non-initiative part. And then you've got Chaos of Chaos Adventurer and the Seasoned Dungeoneer, which actually enables initiative. So basically, you deal combat damage, you keep your initiative, and you get effects every single turn. Doming your opponent for 5, getting a powerful reanimation effect later. You can really put a squeeze on how the game is played. Against Bant Infect, so a deck that very much wants to engage in combat, with Glistener Elf, Noble Hierarch, Blighted Agent, exactly what you'd expect. Let's see how that matches up against 4 main deck Fury from Boros Initiative.
Wow, we keep talking that Modern is a format where playing small creatures is not really a thing anymore because of Wrenn and 6, because of Fury, because of Orcish Bowmasters. Looks like Sam is running into a similar issue here with his smaller creatures potentially running into Fury from Jurgen. Sam is, I'm being told, an Infect Master. Both players are at 5-0, so we can confirm that they have been having a good day so far. This deck is running Glistener Elf and Blighted Agent, the 2 Infect creatures, alongside of Noble Hierarch, obviously, and then the deck uses pump spells like Invigorate. There's also Embiggen, there's also Legolas's Quick Reflexes and Berserk. On top of having some card selection spells, there's 4 copies of Ponder and 4 copies of Brainstorm. And obviously the counter magic that every blue deck pretty much plays in this format. 4 copies of Daze and 4 copies of Force of Will. So Sam is definitely going to be looking for that fast opening hand with an Infect creature, but also probably a Force of Will or that Daze to try to stop that Fury from your gun. It's going to be hard to do that with Daze, but Force of Will would be nice to have. You can also have some kinds of cards to protect this creature. He can also just play, an Invigorate and sort of counter the Fury that way.
Yeah, that's all true. And as you mentioned, it's difficult to play Infect in formats like Modern, but here you still have to play through Fury. You still have to play through Orcish Bowmasters. And as we see from the earlier rounds, there is so much Orcish Bowmasters that the fact that Sam is 5-0 is wildly impressive. Especially in a meta where you also have Jund with like Punishing Fire and stuff. I'm really surprised. Actually, let me look at the matchups, because I think Chad might be interested in the matchups that Sam has played to get to a 5-0 position. And he has won against Bant Infect, so a mirror match, against Painter, Bant, 5-color Control, and Scam.
Daze on that Chalice is super important, because if Chalice on 1 landed there, that would lock more than half of Sam's cards from this game. Actually, almost everything except for Blighted Agent, Daze, and the Great Force of Will is a 1-mana card. So a very timely Daze dealing with that Chalice. Blood Moon is also not an easy card to beat. Looking at Sam's mana base, there are no basic lands. I see a lot of fetches, 4 Inkmoth Nexus, 4 Tropical Island. There's a Pendlehaven, Savannah. But I think this might be it, right? I'm not sure if he can ever cast another spell after this.
Wow. Oh, this is so disappointing. But yeah, and we just see
Obviously,
for
obviously you want the game to keep going because this is a closed deckless tournament. So you don't know what your opponent is exactly playing. Obviously, once they start playing cards like Lotus Petal, Blood Moon, you might quickly figure out they're playing the Boros Initiative deck. And Sam waits a couple turns and just concedes when he confirms that and says, "Yeah, well, I'm not going to be able to play." Now, it's an interesting spot where you might be able to wait a little bit longer. By conceding right away, you kind of tell your opponent, "Well, I don't even have any basics in my deck," which I think is a very big tell, right? That's something that if you kind of volunteer that information, that your opponent knows that, okay, well, my Blood Moons are super effective, so
yeah,
I'm gonna try
yeah.
to keep a hand that maybe only has Blood Moon. If I can play it on turn one, then maybe I want to keep that. So definitely some very interesting dynamic. A game that lasted 2 turns basically, and we're off to sideboarding. So what are you looking for to bring in if you are the Boros Initiative player? Like what types of cards do you want to bring in for a matchup like this?
So I would be tempted to Silent Solitude, great free mana interaction spell. You've got Magus of the Moon to compound on what you've just said. And it's actually pretty clean sweep, because why would you play Fable on turn 3 when you can play Magus? And there are 4 Swords to Plowshares in the sideboard. So you can kind of side into like a red-white control deck, even. Now it would change the way you play, for example, with Chalice, because you don't want to have a Chalice on the board and then draw 2 or 3 Swords to Plowshares. But this initiative deck seems to have everything. Now it makes it impossible to play multiple pump spells because of Archon of Emeria. And Archon of Emeria even blocks cards like Inkmoth Nexus. So initiative is faster, more reactive, has a 1 card wins almost with Blood Moon. It's going to be really tough for Infect. Really, really tough. So we'll see how that goes. Now, Infect has Swords to Plowshares of their own, interestingly, 4 copies. Fluster Veil, Triumph of Saint Catherine, Force of Vigor, Surgical, Sylvan Library, and Sins of Innocence. And I think we could see some number of Force of Vigors because it tags Chalice and Blood Moon, but then Magus goes through. And then maybe Swords to Plowshares to actually alleviate a bit of pressure and try to play a bit slower yourself. But then again, that Blood Moon, be it early or late, really shuts you down.
So would you say that this is a matchup that favors your Jurgen and his Boros deck?
I would say heavily, actually.
Yeah.
I would say heavily.
So there's just too many cards that if they resolve, the game is kind of over. Plus, he also has access to not only Swords to Plowshares, but also Solitude.
Yeah.
So way too many ways to interact with the infect creatures. Obviously, on top of having 4 Fury in the deck already, Archon of Emeria stops you from playing multiple spells. So definitely a matchup where if I'm Sam, I probably want to play against like combo decks or decks where I can just play an infect creature next turn, play Invigorate and Berserk while holding a Daze or Force of Will, where my opponent doesn't have a lot of interaction. But unfortunately for Sam, this is a matchup where Jurgen is definitely ready with more than a fair share of not only removal spells but other cards like Blood Moon that can effectively end the game right away.
It's interesting. It's interesting how in Legacy you've got these games where it ends really fast, like turn 2, and you're dead, or you're the one deading the opponent, or you've got these super drawn out games where both players trade resources, brainstorm to eke out every possible advantage, and you can have a round for you that lasts literally 2 turns, or 20 plus turns, and you never know which one you're going to get. So that is certainly interesting, and we might be seeing the faster one this particular turn.
So what is Sam looking for in his opening hand? I see that is that a Swords to Plowshares?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I think
Di-
I'll be kind of looking for a as all in hand as possible. Just kind of hope that my opponent didn't draw their cards. Like I don't want to give them too much time to deploy their Blood Moon. Obviously, this is easier said than done against a deck that is playing uh, not only the Lotus Petals, but usually also 4 copies of Chrome Mox, so they can sometimes just cast Blood Moon on turn one. So yeah, there's just not a whole lot I can do
uh,
on my end. So I'm just gonna hope that I get that super fast opening hand. Maybe I mulligan aggressively to try to find, maybe like a turn two kill with a force of will. This is not gonna be a matchup where card quantity is gonna matter. This is a matchup where I'm looking for very specific cards, and I'm just trying to win the game on turn 2 or 3. If I let my
yeah.
opponent cast 4 different cards, then that's gonna be game over because it doesn't matter what cards those are really. Like, it can be Source of Plowshares, it can be Solitude, it can be Fury, it can be Blood Moon. They just have way too many cards that are gonna make my life miserable. So I kind of just have to hope for a super fast opening hand with that 1/4, stop the one card they're going to be able to play on the draw, and hopefully win on turn 2 or 3.
Yeah, Glistener have deployed. Jorgen actually has got turn 1 Blood Moon through days because he has got Lotus Petal and Simian Spirit Guide on top of the Soul Land. So Sam really needs a Force of Will here, or needed a Noble Hierarch on the first turn. So now we see a draw. And it might be another 2-turn game. No, there's also an argument that while we had the previous round, the mono red prison deck, actually, if you want to play this prisony style, initiative is the better take because you still have got these aggressive Blood Moon you out, Chalice you out draws, but you actually have a proper clock with thanks to the initiative creatures. So yeah, it's it's a bit of a different take on the same angle, I'd say.
Wait, did Sam actually show any of his infect creatures in game one? He only showed lands, right? And then he conceded. So
Wow,
Jurgen might.
this is just unreal.
Ooh, wow.
Wow, this is unreal. This is
What is happening? Oh my god.
oh my.
That is absolutely brutal. Not
The-
only do I have the True One Blood Moon, I also have the Spirit Guide to play around your days, and also there's Fury to clean up your board.
wow, and now we see land, pass the turn. Well, I mean, Sam is playing it out, but I mean, unless he has Silent Force of Vigor, then he has a chance still. Actually, not a non-zero chance because he could maybe animate Inkmoth and win in one turn. So if he actually does have it, I think it's a Fury.
That's a full
Oh
turn.
my god.
Wow.
And Jorgen breathes a sigh of relief, which is, yeah, wow, that was brutal.
That is, I mean, we saw some crazy shenanigans. We saw the Team of Rhinos player earlier with a turn 1 violent outburst on the draw in your upkeep before you even play your first land, but this was equally as crazy. So congratulations to Jurgen, moving to 6-0. So in a very, very good position to make a run at the top 8. We're moving to the backup feature match. We have
which hasn't started.
we have Jan Langer playing Elves, playing against Simon Ritter on Cradle Control. So these decks are very similar. Can you talk us through the differences, or what these decks are trying to do?
It's almost like we're watching the original version, Elves, versus the evolved or changed version, which is the Cradle Control, because they are both Green Sun Zenith, Natural Order, Once Upon a Time decks. That checks out. However, there are big differences elsewhere because Elves is much more synergy oriented with Nettle Sentinel, Wirewood Symbiote, Heritage Druid, and Glimpse of Nature, where you can have these kind of combo-esque turns that you keep drawing through your deck, and at some point finish off with Craterhoof Behemoth. So yeah, it's much more synergy driven, much more prone to removal and effects like mass removal, maybe, for example. Contrary to Cradle Control, which is more like a mid-range deck, I'd say. So you still have got the finish end game with Natural Order into Craterhoof or Atraxa, but you also play Orcish Bowmasters, Endurance, Elvish Reclaimer, Fiend Artisan. So, and you're not relying on these elf cards, not in the same capacity. For example, Quirion Ranger is an elf that's also in the elves deck, but it's more to, for example, untap Fiend Artisan for another activation, or Elvish Reclaimer for another activation. So, a lot overlaps, but they will play out completely differently.
Which side of the table would you rather be sitting on? Do you think one of these decks has an advantage? If yes, then for what reason? Or is this just a match where the die roll just decides everything?
So I would prefer to be on the elf side, especially on the play, because you can be just much faster, and you can actually not draw and outrace your opponent. But the question is how much interaction Cradle has, because they've got Orcish Bowmasters. Okay, that's fine. It all depends on the sideboard. If there is maybe more removal to pick the hand apart or the board apart. Because on the flip side, Simon's cards individually are much better than Jan's cards individually. So, but yeah, overall, I think I'd rather be on Elves, especially with that hand. I think it's double symbiote. Double symbiote, natural order. Okay, so it's.
How do you think the game is going to end? One player getting a Crater Hoof in play. That's the most likely scenario, right? There's not a lot of there's not a lot of interaction. It's not like both players are going to be playing Swords of Plowshares and Furies and whatnot.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
This is just mostly both players going to be goldfishing. Doing their thing. I would expect winning the die roll being a huge part of the matchup. If you are the first one to get to attack with Crater Hoof Behemoth, then that's got to be very important.
I really like the Quirion attack because all the opponent says no blocks. Of course they say no blocks, but you got some damage in, and you play Fiend Artisan, which is a birthing pod, one could say. So for green or black and X mana, you can sacrifice another creature and search your library for a creature with converted mana cost of X or less that you put into it, and you put that creature onto the battlefield immediately. So you can sink mana into it and basically find anything. Now, on the other side of the table, Elvish Visionary. So that's a classic. Turn 1, Heritage Druid, turn 2, Elvish Visionary. Looks like a cube deck so far.
There's one copy of Allosaurus Shepherd in Simon's deck. Does it have any specific reason? That's not something you really want to find with, your natural order, right? Like, what's the reason for one copy of Shepherd?
So Allosaurus Shepherd has a few uses. So first of all, it grants uncounterability, which can be really useful. For example, you can find it with Fiend Artisan, find Shepherd, everything is uncounterable, and then play Natural Order in general. Or as a mana sink to just overrun the opponent on a single turn. So that's the general idea. But in this case, Orcish Bowmasters and Woof already punishing. If there is any glimpse action, I mean, this basically stomps any glimpse shenanigans.
And I wanted to give you like an interesting question. I thought it was Allosaurus Rider. Allosaurus Shepherd obviously makes a lot more sense in an elf deck.
Yeah.
That certainly makes sense for the overrun effect, or your creatures to not be able to be countered.
Yeah, the moment you mentioned the card name, my brain still defaulted to the actual card in the deck list because I knew what you meant.
Right.
Okay. So now we see Boseiju, 3 lands on the elf side. And okay. Heritage Druid. Symbiote.
This is how it starts.
Another symbiote.
Okay, but not a third elf, so Jan unfortunately cannot use the Heritage Druid to get 3 green mana this turn. I think he's also down to 1 or 2 cards only. So he's gonna need something good next turn.
The good thing is that these decks, if they know there is no counter magic and there is no counter magic, they can just slam Natural Order and just go with Atraxa or Crater Hoof and just, the first player to play Natural Order will probably just win.
Yeah, that certainly
And
makes sense. If there's no interaction, then yeah, Crater Hoof should just win most of the time. I can't really imagine a scenario where if I'm resolving a natural order for Crater Hoof Behemoth on a board like this, then it wouldn't be enough. Like that just doesn't seem possible.
okay, so now we use Fiend Artisan to sacrifice the Orc Amass token. Yeah, so that's even better. So Fiend Artisan really coming in clutch, sacrificing the otherwise dead token. I mean, a 1/1 would still not be blocked probably, and finds another Orcish
Wow.
Bowmasters, which is just a beating.
So in Simon's case, his deck does actually have some interaction, right? He does have the Bowmasters that he can play to slow down Jan to try to keep his board in check. So if he's not casting Natural Order yet, there are ways for him to interact. On the other hand, Jan does have Glimpse of Nature, so he can go off, especially with the Heritage Druid in play, being able to untap some of the elves and go off again. Maybe a nice guy's cradle somewhere in there. So he can certainly go off in other ways. But I think I would also perhaps prefer the interaction in the matchup, as it will often come down to just whoever has the natural order first.
Okay, Elvish Visionary, trigger. Okay. And then kill these.
Oh wow.
That's going to be rough. So he will respond by floating mana. So 3 green in the pool. Then Wirewood Symbiote can bounce that Heritage Druid and then untap, for example, Elvish Visionary. So it's not completely dead. There are some things that you could be doing. Yeah, 3 mana floating, Heritage in hand, deploy Heritage, float the 4th mana. And now Natural Order on the tapped creature.
The problem
Okay.
is that enough? Like now with only Visionary in play, I don't think the trigger is going to be big enough to do anything. So he goes for a Troxa instead. Okay, interesting. Now we're doing something. Now we're getting somewhere. So Atraxa, a big 7/7 flying, lifelink vigilance, death touch. That's going to be a problem for Simon to get through unless he finds his own copy of Natural Order. But I think, given that last year he went activation of Artisan, play another land, that pretty much demonstrated that he does not have the Natural Order. Otherwise, I think it would have won him the game on the spot. So now Jan moves ahead by a decent margin, and I think Simon is going to try to find. He's going to need to try to find a natural order. Otherwise, this Atraxa is going to be able to close out the game.
Yeah, and there was one Natural Order I think flipped. It's a third card from the top, I think. So there is Natural Order. Now this deck plays not very many types of cards for Atraxa's purposes. There is land creature, obviously, sorcery instant, and a single grist. So I would expect it to draw 4 most of the time. But I think the idea here is that you're just amassing, make the opponent have to answer Atraxa, and when they do, you just go with another Natural Order and just power through. Now, there are only 2 very powerful order targets, which is Atraxa and Crater Hoof. So if both are dealt with, yeah, we're just playing a very sluggish game, I think, of 1/1 creatures.
Very importantly here, Atraxa says that you reveal the cards and then you put them into your hand. It is not a draw effect, so that Bowmasters is not going to do even more damage to Jan's board.
Okay, still counting. Simon is waiting. So in Simon's deck, there is Gris that you can find in Kila Traxa. There are no more Orcish Bowmasters. Um, yeah, yeah, that's basically it when it comes to any exciting targets.
So when I think of Legacy these days, I don't think of it as a brainstorm format anymore. I think of it as a brainstorm Orcish Bowmasters format. Like Bowmasters certainly changed the format, right?
Yeah,
I would
the
think
landscape. Yeah.
I would think that playing a deck full of 1/1s would just be, a something that's just most likely not going to work out too well. But Giannis 5-0. This is a match where I think we're looking at table 6. Both players are undefeated, so certainly it can still work.
And also, just to add context, because again, I can see the history of games, he has beaten 2 Orcish Bowmasters decks already and 1 Terminus deck. So, yeah, I guess it's doable.
Yeah.
Because he beat Grixis Delver, 4-color control, Shadow. He has also beat Sneak and Show, so another, very fast deck with counter magic. So yeah, Elf's pretty impressive.
Is that the natural? Oh my god, it is a natural order sacrificing the Dryad Arbor. And now Simon just needs to reveal that the behemoth is in his deck and not in his hand. Wow. So much work, so much setting up. I actually was sold on the idea that Simon didn't have it. I thought that if he had natural order, he would have played it last turn. Perhaps the math didn't exactly add up. Perhaps he did draw the natural order this turn. But looks like now with the behemoth trigger, this should be more than enough to attack even through the Atrox, all right?
Yeah, and Simon has just, classic adage of math is for blockers. I'm just smashing it with everything. But it does not seem to be lethal. It has to be a bit shy. So Jan gains life that goes up to 26. Thanks to lifelink. So it's 26. No, okay, it didn't.
I like that. I like to keep the math for you on there. Just you do the math. I think I'm attacking for like 40. You can try to figure it out if the lifelink saves you. But even if it does,
Yeah.
I think your board would just completely get wrecked there, and I would just attack next turn for lethal. So Simon takes game number 1 with a very timely natural order, and now both players get the sideboard. What kind of sideboard cards are you looking for in a matchup like this that is mostly about, finding natural order, perhaps the Glimpse of Nature combo, but also you're fighting against Orcish Bowmasters. So, what kinds of cards are you looking for?
Yeah, I really prefer Cradle side post board because they can side in quadruple snuff out. And if they feel like it, they could even add Thought Seizers, maybe cheeky Mind Break Trap to just wait until the opponent has, for the Storm of turn, right? They play a bunch of spells and you eat their Glimpse or maybe you eat their Natural Order. So yeah, Cradle side, yeah, be my guest. For Elves, it's much tougher because what do you side in? Legolas's Quick Reflexes, I guess. Maybe your Thoughtseize of your own, but that's about it. You could side in maybe Gadok Teague, which shuts off the opposing. Actually, no, because it
Works
shuts off
works for both.
everybody's.
Yeah, works for
Yeah,
both players. So
so it doesn't really work. So, yeah, pretty tough. Pretty tough for Elves, not gonna lie. For game one, maybe the fact that it's on the play, maybe there is some combination of like nut draws. But if Simon couples up quadruple snuff out with double Orcish Bowmasters and his own linear plan, he's pretty likely to be able to thwart whatever Jan's trying to assemble.
I think I would probably bring the Gadok in anyway, thinking if I'm in an advantageous position,
I don't play it.
maybe I just play it to shut off my opponent's ability to win out of nowhere. Like if I'm winning on board, by a decent amount, maybe I'm going for the Glimpse of Nature combo, something along those lines, then I just want to solidify that by making sure my opponent does not resolve their their natural order. The cost of doing that seems pretty low. Just having one Gaddock in my deck, that doesn't seem unreasonable. I can find it with all the Green Sun Zenith. I could potentially find it with natural order. So the cost of that is super low. Obviously, it has some downside. You don't have to play it if you draw it in your hand, and it would stop you from casting your own natural order. But I think it should still probably find its way into the deck, because you're just looking for any kind of ways that you can interact with the opponent. It's a matchup where both players have a lot of forests and they're casting creatures, so you need something that's going to be able to stop them from doing something that's going to win them the game. So despite this not being the best, I think it would still seem relatively reasonable.
Okay, players are looking at their opening hands, trying to assess if that's enough. Natural order, immediately we can see there for Jan. But it doesn't seem to be an obvious keep or a mulligan. He's pondering his options. Yeah, I'm unsure how to proceed from this position. I can see natural order. I can see, I think, glimpse, shepherd, heritage druid.
That seemed like a reasonable hand, but I don't think there was a lot of mana acceleration. So a hand that is going to be very awkward against Orcish Bowmasters. Meanwhile, Simon is taking a mulligan of his own, possibly looking for that Bowmasters, possibly looking for his own mana acceleration. There are 2 copies of Noble Hierarch, 4 copies of Ignoble Hierarch. No actual Llanowar Elves or anything along those lines. Obviously, there's 4 copies of Green Sun Zenith, so turn 1, you can get that Dried Arbor. Simon is looking he's playing exactly 1 copy of Chrome Mox, which I guess that makes sense in some way. You want to draw exactly 1. You never want to draw more than that, right? So he's kind of running 1 to saying, yeah, if I draw the Mox, 1 would be perfect. I never want to draw 2. So that is also a card that I think would be good in this matchup.
Okay, we see Shepherd play. Probably turn 1 Green Sun Zenith for Dryad Arbor. I can also see Bowmasters in hand.
Do you think Green Sun Zenith would be reasonable to unban in Modern? Or would this be just too much, too common of a thing where people would just play turn 1 Zenith to get Dried Arbor, and it would just be too small of a price to pay for sort of having 4 free Llanowar Elves in your deck?
Well, I would say it's perfectly fine. So basically, the biggest issue is not the fair decks; it's the Amulet Titan decks. This is where the Zenith could be a problem, because you can find Dryad, you can find Titan, but if we have just the Dryad decks, I think that's not the problem. Now the issue is how to balance the Dryad part with the top end part. But I would give it a go, honestly. I would give it a go. There's only so much, tutors you could play in that, for example, Amulet deck. And we see 2 mana, Fiend Artisan. There is no black mana for Bowmasters, it seems. Oh, that's huge then.
Wow, Cradle for 2, and that enables another Zenith for X equals 1. No, that's equals. Yeah, that's X equals 1, right? So okay, that's Ignoble Hierarch, which is going to up the mana count that Simon's going to have available for a next turn.
I'm really curious if the fact that you didn't have Bowmasters on curve will spell Doom, because it just might. Jan cashed in one of the glimpses the previous turn. It might indicate that there are more. So draw.
Yeah, or just Jan just wants to to draw into more creatures. Like with that natural order in hand, I think he just wants to make sure he draws as many creatures as possible, plays them out on the battlefield, and hopefully for him that turn 4 natural order would be fast enough.
Yeah, possibly turn 3 right now. So, no, what you would like to see something like Nettle Sentinel that untaps with every green spell. So that could be a continuous way to add mana. Quirion Ranger. Okay. So we've got Quirion Ranger, add 3, 4th from the land, and then Natural Order on the stack. So that's a good way to play around Bowmasters.
Whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, whoa! Is that going to be good enough? Is that Atraxa again? Like we saw game 1 that Atraxa is not exactly enough. It's fine. It's gonna replenish your hand a little bit, but it still does not present lethal anytime soon, and it doesn't interact with the opponent. It's fine that you draw some cards. You might get to attack with it once, but if the opponent plays 5 creatures and their own natural order for Craterhoof Behemoth, then I think they still win by a decent amount. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen here. Maybe after sideboard, when you have more different card types in your deck, you may reveal something like a Snuff Out. Maybe you're going to get a Thoughtseize to try to interact with opponents. So that's definitely going to be interesting.
Yeah, but we will probably see a very similar play pattern of Fiend Artisan finding Grist and Grist killing Atraxa. But the question is whether we have enough mana to both do this and play Bowmasters, which we could, because if we play Bowmasters first, it costs 2 mana, but then kind of reimburses the mana for Cradle, right? So if you play Black Souls, Orcish Bowmasters, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so if there is a Black Souls because Ignoble. So I think, unfortunately for Jan, Simon will be able to play Bowmasters, float mana with Cradle, Fiend Artisan into Grist, and really demolish what Jan has assembled. Yeah, I think this is the line. Bowmasters into Grist. Aye, aye, aye.
Well, let's see what Dion is getting here. He already played a land this turn, or has he not played a land this turn? I think he might be able to make a land drop still, so maybe he's still going to be able to play Cradle, get some extra mana.
That's true, yeah.
Maybe Thoughtseize can take a look at Simon's hand. I believe he does have a land drop available to him.
Okay, so we finally landed with Thoughtseize, Misty Rainforest, Grist, and a card.
And a mono black card that,
It's probably green, yeah. What could this card be? I'm thinking.
Wait, was there no creature in the tank in the cards revealed? He grabbed a Thoughtseize, a land, a Grist, and if it's Legolas's Reflexes.
Well, maybe Grist was taken as a creature, but yeah, that would mean maybe, yeah, because I think you have to take Grist as a creature, not as a planeswalker.
Either way, Jan decides to play that fetch land and pass the turn. Is there a chance he's only playing 2 copies of Bayou in his deck?
Yeah.
He actually, he actually is. So he cannot fetch a black source right now. I was confused. I was thinking, why is there no Thoughtseize on the stack? And it looks like both of Jan's Bayous are in play, so he is not able to cast that Thoughtseize. That's actually a pretty big deal, because now Simon has the ability to do something crazy of his own. And as you mentioned, a Bowmasters into Grist would be pretty brutal here.
Yeah, counting the mana to make sure that if you do everything, it works properly. Yeah, I can see counting the mana, looking in at the ceiling, Hikaru style. Yeah, pianist fingers. And let's see if we come up with a good plan. Okay, basic forest, 2 mana, green sun zenith x equals 1. So this could be like a maybe Quirion Ranger. I think there is a Quirion Ranger in the deck. You can return a forest and untap a creature. Oh, it is a Quirion Ranger. Okay, good. Good.
Important to notice here that Greenson Zenith does only find green creatures, so you cannot search for Bowmasters that way.
Yeah, and now still counting. So now 2 mana, Orcish Bowmasters. And then it enters the battlefield, it makes an army token. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, it's 6 creatures.
Yeah,
so Cradle makes 6, yeah. And so when you have 6 mana, you can use the Fiend and pay 1 and 3 to search out Grist. So that's assuming we go with this line, right, that we've mentioned, Bowmaster into Grist. But maybe he's thinking if he can actually win this turn, right?
Yeah, Simon is definitely doing way too much counting for my liking if I'm sitting on the other side of the table. This certainly looks like a man who's trying to count if Craterhoof Behemoth would be enough to attack through that Atraxa. I mean, we know that most of the time Craterhoof is lethal with a board like that, but it's certainly better to make sure you count that in advance. It's 6 mana floating. That looks like a natural order to me. It is, yeah. Okay.
Wow. It is natural order. Jan just says, yep, that resolves.
But it doesn't give the creatures haste, right? So those three creatures that were just played this turn are not going to be able to attack. Creatures you control gain trample and +X+X. So only the artisan can actually attack. Is this actually enough?
Well, you can untap the Dryad Arbor with Quirion Ranger, I think.
Do you have a forest?
Yeah, I think he played this turn, yeah. Yeah, there is a forest. So you can untap that and then smash in. Although you have to break through an Atraxa that has lifelink, so...
Yeah, but maybe you can force the Atraxa to block. Yeah, there's a forest. Okay, so... Let's see. Oh, Simon can also activate. He had 6 mana floating. Remember that. So with that natural order, 2 mana are left in the pool. That allows him to still activate the Letter of the Hydra. So now he has 7 creatures. Like you mentioned, he can activate the Quirion Ranger. Forest gets returned to hand. Untap my Dryad Arbor, and now I have 3 attackers. So that was 7.
Wow.
+7/+7, I believe. So that's 21, 26, 27, 28 trample damage. So Jan certainly has to block.
Yeah.
I think he will survive the turn, but I think it is unlikely that he's going to be able to do anything about that on his own turn.
Wow, this is so powerful. But this is the name of the game. But twice we've had Jan playing his own order first, and twice the opponent followed up with their own natural order after, amassing something just more powerful. So this is the classic situation where players like drawing cards, but it's just much better to close games completely. And it's exactly this type of case. Why would you Atraxa if you can just amass the board and then Craterhoof for lethal? Working on more resources. Yeah.
We'll see what happens. If that Atraxa survives, it certainly gives Jan a chance to stay in it. We know that he does have the Legolas's quick reflexes in hand. I believe that he took from the Atraxa trigger previously.
Yeah.
So
there are two forests in the deck, so you can search out a basic forest and activate it. Now, Legolas's quick reflexes says, to be specific, that the creature deals damage equal to its power to up to 1 target creature, and when you deal damage and your creature has lifelink, it still counts.
The only problem is it has to get tapped. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So he can't use it as a life spell sort of here. He just he has to throw the Atraxa away just to stay alive. That pretty much soaks up 14 damage, 7 with the body, 7 with the lifelink. Looks like that puts Jan to 7, allows him to correct the fetch land. But he's going to be untapping with 3 lands in play and a Heritage Druid. Is that a board he can still win from? I believe so. I mean, the Elves deck certainly can win from a spot where you have 3 lands and a Heritage Druid. If you go Glimpse into double Nettle Sentinel, you start casting a bunch of cards, and that can certainly work.
Yeah, that's true. So Simon is presenting 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 power, and the issue is that that Cradle powers up Lair of the Hydra. This is the Legolas's card.
Okay, so that untaps. I believe that's a Dried Arbor. So now it's a 2/2. So now if it gives Jan mana, it's gonna be able to shoot something down. So he uses that to kill the Orcish Bowmasters, I believe.
Okay.
That takes care of the Bowmaster's problem. Now he can start possibly glimpsing. There it is. So he does have that. Okay.
Okay.
So now what he wants to draw into is 2 running Nettle Sentinels, right? Oh,
Elvish
wow,
Visionary. Oh, and just lands and Thoughtseize.
Yeah, Visionary into. I mean, he still has a land drop available, right? So land Visionary. I think that wouldn't.
Okay, so activates, untaps this, bounces that.
Oh, remember that's the second time the Dryad is tapped, so he gets to use the shoot trigger again.
Yeah.
So kills the Quiren Ranger, floats another mana, still has a land drop available.
So we're trying to master something. These elf decks sometimes really resemble Storm, like actual Storm.
Okay, no mana floating, draw a card. Oh wow, that's a good one. That's a very good one.
Yeah.
That's a Burklore Ranger that you can use in combination with the Visionary. Play another elf. Then you can use the Symbiote on your opponent's turn, untap something, block. You are at 7 life. With that fetch line, that's 6 now. I'm not sure if Jan also drew 2 cards or just 1, because he was supposed to draw 1 from the 1 from Glimpse and 1 from the Visionary itself.
Oh, forgetting to draw a card at this point.
Can you forget? I guess you could forget about the Visionary trigger, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, he's counting.
He needs at least 2 blockers, right? He needs to block the lair, and he needs to block one of the creatures. I think he also fetched this turn, so I think he's on 6, not on 7. That's actually a pretty big deal. So he needs 3 blockers. He needs 3 creatures to throw in front of the 3 attackers.
Yeah, tough situation.
And I'm not sure what's going on now. If the Ranger is on the stack.
Okay, no, it's on the battlefield floating mana. We'll play Heritage Druid. Yep, Heritage Druid. Nothing happens and just pass the turn.
I think Jan completely. Wait, did he draw a card for the?
No.
He has to draw a card. Or no? Yeah, Glimpse. You have to draw a card with Glimpse.
Well, that is rough. That is rough indeed. Activate Lair of the Hydra, probably going to combat right now. Smashing with everybody. Simon says, okay, just show me what you've got. And lining up the blocks. Cannot forget that there is some trample action. Yeah. Stays alive, untaps. Well, he certainly wishes he had more cards available. Oh, he scratches his head, probably trying to come up with a proper plan. 3 mana available. I think 6 cards in hand total, but I think like 2 of them are lands. 1 is like Grist. And we will update the life total soon enough. Yeah, so it calculates again. Double, triple checks. Yeah, that's an interesting game. I'm really curious what's going on through these players' heads. I wish I could see that, which I sadly can't. Simon, pretty stressed. He knows that he's potentially one combat away from clinching that 6 and now. Okay, that's a start. That is a start indeed. Counting, recounting. Playing Grist. Okay. I assume Grist takes care of the Cradle. Oh, what?
Well, it looks like the life total finally updated. So Jan is at 1.
Wait, Cradle Hoof has trample, so not killing Crater Hoof is bizarre to me. Because if we just go to combat, we'll see what happens, but I can't see the appropriate... Unless I... Oh, Crater Hoof has haste, not trample. Okay, grants trample. Okay, sorry. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, so if that's the case, then we're still playing. Bosage here. Activate Lair. Attack with Fog.
Simon saying, well, all I can do is just attack with these creatures, but 2 of them are big enough to force chump block, so at least these trades are pretty good for me. Yeah, pretty much everything has to die, right? Jan has to throw all of his creatures in front of the attackers.
Oh my god, yeah. Well, I think he may as well have tick down Grist. Use your Dryad Arbor to kill the behemoth. Maybe that would have given him a higher chance. Yeah.
I guess that makes Cradle only give 2 mana now. Is he gonna be able to put up enough resistance? But I mean, that's not really a great long-term game plan, right? Just chum blocking with a bunch of creatures every turn, that's certainly not gonna do it. So Jan needs to figure out a plan that's, not only gonna keep him alive, but also something a little bit more proactive. That Thoughtseize is a death card. That Misty is a death card. He's on 1, so he's not gonna be able to use those. What can Zenith give him?
He could tap Dryad Arbor, play another creature, use that Arbor to minus Grist on Crater Hoof. Then Ignoble is not a threat if you attack with Lair of the Hydra. Okay. I think it's possible to win for Jan. I'm really surprised I'm saying that, but I think it is. Genuinely.
All right, so walk us through your plan. What are you thinking?
This is step 1, right? So you get rid of that. Okay. Now you only have an attack with Lair of the Hydra. That's the only attack you have, right? So you can chump. You have another draw, 3 mana, and you're in the game for now, right? So you can maybe, from that point on, Grist can keep making chump blockers for Lair. So you're at parity. So I really think it's not impossible to win.
Yeah, I guess now it's about what's on the top of each player's deck. I think Simon drew a Green Sun Zenith this turn.
I mean, that is impressive that Jan is still in this game. And let me just reread one of the cards, because what you can also do this turn is you can block with the Heritage Druid and then bounce it with Symbiote. Okay, now you don't even next to... Oh, this could be just Bowma. Oh, no, you can't, because it's Zenith takes green. So it cannot be Bowbusters. It could be Grist.
With the Symbiote, you're not actually losing your creature because you bounce it to your hand after blocking. The question is, what does this Zenith... what does it find? Is there going to be any medium-sized creature, something with trample? Is a Fiend Artisan the best Simon can find at this moment? It is. Yeah, remember, Jan is at 1.
Wow. I mean, this game is actually really good. I didn't expect it to be. I really thought it was like natural order, GG. But this is actually really interesting, and I'm really impressed at how Jan is holding on. So now Grist mandatorily has to downtick on the Fiend because otherwise it finds Bowmasters. There is one more in the deck.
Yeah, and Jan definitely playing off the top of his deck here. Misty doesn't do anything, Thoughtseize doesn't do anything. So it's only the top card each turn that kind of keeps him alive with that Grist.
Yeah.
Elvish Visionary would be the perfect card to be able to reuse it with the Wildwood Symbiote every turn.
Yeah.
And jump
Absolutely.
block, return it back to his hand. Let's see what he does now. I think is that another copy of Legolas's Quick Reflexes? I think that might be it. I think it's another one of those fully foil sort of black cards.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the Fiend Artisan grows, so it's a 6/6. So you actually have to use Grist, so you no longer have these repeated tokens to keep you alive. And remember, it's just game 2. So if Jan somehow pulls through, we will have a third game in the set.
Well, it is Legolas's Quick Reflexes. Wow. Okay, so that kills the Noble Hierarch. Return it to hand.
Yeah, and then cash it in, kill this. But then you have to chump Lair of the Hydra. Oh no, because Cradle doesn't give mana, right? So you can only make a 1/1 less, so it doesn't even make sense. So you have to play whatever you draw. Elvish Reclaimer is a decent draw. So you could attack and force a trade. Okay, he just passes back. Oh my god. Oh, what was the draw? Once Upon a Time is the draw. Okay, land. I think it's a miss. No, is it a miss?
I see at least 2 fetch lands, 1 Quick Reflexes. I think that's a Green Sun Zenith.
Yeah, but that doesn't do it. It's just spells.
Wow.
Oh my god.
Yeah, tough break for Jan there. Breaking on a
Once
Upon a Time where all he needs is a creature. Wow, he gets another. Wow, and Simon can't believe he actually won that. It's like, I don't believe. Wow, what after that glimpse of nature, I think it started looking a little bit kind of bad for Simon. But eventually, I think Jan missed a couple of triggers there as well. Ends up breaking on that.
Wow.
On that Once Upon a Time in the end, and yeah, congratulations to Simon for moving to 6-0. Yeah, exciting matches today.
Insane. Absolutely insane.
Would you say more insane than the first match we saw, where we got that turn 1 Blood Moon with the extra mana from Simian Spirit Guide to play for days? Yeah.
So this is a different type of insane, because here you can actually see people, blocking and waiting, and it builds the suspense. There you just had the release of the suspense at the very beginning, right? And here the suspense was building. At some point, I was really hoping Jan could turn things around to show how you should actually play to your routes. Try to play as best you can until the very end. But yeah, exciting game nonetheless. So yeah, and so Cradle Control moves on to undefeated.
Yeah, that was round number 6. We're gonna take a little bit of a break. We should be back in 5 to 10 minutes. 4 more rounds today before we get our top 8. So stick with us. We're gonna be back in 5 or 10.